taking you through an overview of the changing paradigms of higher education, and we have all seen how the space of landscape of teaching, learning, and evaluation has been reimagined, partly due to the reformation that has been brought in, and partly due to the disruption that all of us have been a part of universally. The landscape of higher education has changed, and by leaps and bounds, and in the pandemic disrupted world, the landscape had clearly visible the footprints of COVID-19, like it was visible in all the other sectors. So education sector was not an exception. However, triggered by the pandemic, the education as a package, teaching, learning, and evaluation, stepped into the digital world and took what we call the leap of faith. And all of us during the pandemic took recourse to the digital world to continue with the teaching, learning, and evaluation process. However, despite the disruption that the pandemic brought in terms of the use of technology and entering into the space of technology, the beginnings of this disruption was already seen with the reformatory air that all of us have been a part of, be it the NEP or the UGC reformation or AICT proclaimed a reformation. So the disruption in the sector of education had begun much before the pandemic through these several reformations, and be it the outcome-based learning or diversified assessment. And what is very common as far as both these phases of disruption through the reformation and the pandemic is the emergence of the use of technology. Technology became part and parcel, or began to be integrated with the regular and routine activities of the landscape of education at all levels. And of course, we are connecting ourselves, or we are focusing on the higher education. So technology, in fact, has revolutionized the traditional ways of education in terms of not just the execution of several routine activities, but also in the way education itself is being reimagined and rethought about. So I would categorize this in three large areas, keeping in mind the focus area of today's talk: teaching, learning, examination and evaluation, and academic record management. This essentially, I look at it, and like all of us, is this technological intervention which calls for automation and results in customization and corporatization. The way I use the word corporatization is slightly different from the general use of the word. Corporatization here is in terms of the collaborative exercises that educational institutions are entering into by bringing in the industry sectors. And today, of course, we talk about edutech corporates who are an integral part of education landscape and scenario. So automation, like I said earlier, is an integral part of all the routine activities, and without which a lot of the changes that have been brought in the field of education cannot really happen manually. Customization is a radical change that we have, that we are all a part of in terms of several ways of learning, which also includes personalized learning, be it the pace of learning, the choice of credits or the choice of courses. There's a large field of flexibility that students are endowed with. And lastly, the sense of all this in terms of a corporate connect, that is collaborative education in terms of bringing in industry experts, not just as personnel, but also having a strong element of the industry curriculum, industry integrated curriculum. So technology in these aspects have revolutionized education today, and that's why we feel the need to talk about in a forum like this, where you have learner centricism is the radical and the paradigm shift that we have been seeing thanks to the reformation that education has been entering into, which in turn has brought in the integrated digital infrastructure, be it your interactive boards, smart classrooms, LMS, all those are a part of the digital infrastructure, which are a prerequisite in the educational landscape, which also has its impact on the course content, the course materials, the courses that are online, as rightly said by my predecessor speaker here. NEP is one of the reformatory instruments that we have seen, and UGC and AICT and the regulatory bodies have already started with, which probably has seen culmination in the new education policy. Today, the demands of ranking and accreditation, is integral to the education sector. And this also adds a kind of a brand value to the educational institutions, which are marked by the brand value in terms of technology enhancement, and that is an integral part of the demands of ranking and accreditation. All of them, have organically moved into the significant emergence of, or on the thrust of education, on the thrust of technology enhanced education. And of course, technology is the best bet when it requires managing everything: data, people, and processes. So we see a sure, integral functioning of technology and education together, where today we no longer talk about colleges or institutions of education in terms of a physical space or physicality of the space. But we also talk about personalization that has crept in. We also talk about hybrid education, which exists between the physical and the virtual world. Today, there is a plethora of options that students or learners can choose from, which we would categorize as non-conventional courses, be it artificial intelligence, machine learning, video editing, you name it, and there is a course. EduTech itself is an interesting area of research and study today. Like I said, with the advancement of technology and the integration of technology and education, you have a lot of trends that have come into the education sector in terms of the online degrees, hybrid education, data analysis. Everything is based on data. Data mining and data is a huge aspect of education also. And AI intercepted data analysis helps in understanding the progression of students, in trying to map them with the outcomes. So these are of significance in the landscape today. Apart from this, like I said, in terms of collaborative education, we have industry integrated courses wherein industry personnel come in with their rich experiences and making education more relevant in terms of the in terms of the way the student takes away things of value from the education landscape. There are several takeaways when you talk about that, because the parameters of learning, testing, evaluation, all of them need to be relooked and reoriented to create knowledge workforce. Today, we are talking of learners who would be going out of the portals of any educational institution without even realizing what kind of work profile awaits him, because that is the kind of volatility, that is the kind of dynamism that exists in terms of the industry and the corporations, where there are no definite skill sets that a student can anticipate and go into the corporates or to work. So we are actually preparing students to get into profiles which probably would be new to them, and digital platforms are an excellent platform to be utilized to build the requisite skills. And of course, today we talk about the significance and the relevance of 21st century skills, because every sphere of education celebrates critical thinking, reasoning, the abilities to solve problems, collaboration, collaborative interests and attitudes of students or learners or any teammates. So the takeaway is in terms of technology. Yes, there is probably a lot of us would feel that there is a lot of intervention of technology, but then we have all adapted to it, triggered by the pandemic, and all of us have found ourselves, very firmly rooted in the sphere of technology, which now all of us realize is a means of empowerment. Definitely empowerment to both the teaching community and the learner community. And in terms of the opportunities that a learner gets, in terms, like I said, in terms of the pace of learning, the choice of, credits, the choice of courses, and the ability to go through a blended learning, which is, between the offline and a mix of offline and the online classes. But the ultimate goal, like the UGC manual, which brings in the UGC regulated reform says, is to create a knowledgeable workforce. And that remains the goal, wherein technology plays a very crucial role. Any teaching and learning activity, including evaluation, needs to be meaningful, needs to be purposeful. And that can happen only when it is linked to learning outcomes. which in turn, we all know, gets linked to the institutional goals. So the learner engagement can happen in multiple ways today because of technology. Some of them, to name a few: synchronous, asynchronous learning. We have the flipped classrooms, we have MOOCs, we have collaborative learning, and several structured options where a learner is able to make very informed choices in terms of the path that he needs to choose and what are the courses that he would be going through. There are also programs where he or she chooses to stay at home and use the resources that are available in terms of online programs, online classes. And there is an active engagement process that a learner is going through, and which definitely enhances his learning experience, his or her learning experience, because today we talk about absolutely fascinating options that are available, to use technology and to execute the teaching learning process. Like I said, there is an option of personalized, individualized education along with collaborative education that is possible, and all this, involves the use of an effective learning management system. Coming to the pedagogical paradigm, which has really changed. There is a paradigm shift in terms of the power dynamics that I would want to use that term, power dynamics, that existed or that exists inside the classroom, because today we no longer talk about the teacher autonomy or the teacher authority, but the paradigm has shifted to the learner being the center of all activities that concern teaching, learning, and evaluation. So there is a greater amount of learner autonomy that we see around today, which has changed the dynamics inside the classroom. Today, a professor or a teacher is only a facilitator, because information is easily available for every learner who only has to make a choice at the click of a button. So there is a lot of scope for discussions and deliberations inside a classroom rather than an autocratic method of teaching. And technology applications can surely help structure active learning opportunities, which are plenty for the learner. And to make it interesting, you have interactive and collaborative learning that's possible. You have personalized learning that is possible. And very importantly, the kind of rigidity on curriculum no longer exists. Today, we talk about integration of several instructional strategies, that are relevant inside a classroom and outside a classroom, with the focus on learning that can happen anywhere and everywhere. So it is not limited to the time or the duration that a child or a learner spends inside a classroom. Rather, a lot of learning happens from the remote corners of the home or the geographical space that he chooses to be in terms of the virtual and hybrid learning models. So there are a lot of changes that are happening inside the classroom, but very importantly, there is an atmosphere that facilitates learning. And the professors and the teachers become facilitators to strategize instructional material that is relevant and how to execute their teaching through several available options because of technology. Now, the third bit that I was talking about, apart from record maintenance, is obviously examination management system. Gone are the days when the examination department had to only deal with numbers in terms of conducting examination, getting them evaluated, going through the process of re-evaluation, and computing and announcing of results. Today, the entire Department of Examination and Evaluation is integrated with academics, and hence today we talk about an examination management system wherein a lot of these aspects cannot be. It's impossible to get these things done manually. So I'm sure controllers of examinations across would understand this, that we are at the threshold of even if it is an excessive use of technology, but then there is a kind of a dependency on technology in order to manage this system, which requires automation. And the automated system is inclusive of the entire life cycle of that a student goes through in the process of examination, right from registration to convocation. And there is a greater transparency in terms of the conduction and the operations of examination department. Of course, security and efficiency of processes and workflow is also an important aspect. What is important for us to understand is that disrupted by the pandemic, we are talking about scalability today, because in the earlier phase of examination and the conventional examination that we spoke about, the pen and paper examinations that all of us have been, and quite a few of us are still part of that, is the kind of impossibility of scalability. So thanks to technology, thanks to online examinations in various formats, we talk about a seamless and scalable system wherein additional numbers can be accommodated without actually worrying about the physical availability of infrastructure. So the kind of constraints no longer exist. Of course, technology comes in with its own challenges, which we would be speaking about, but it would be impractical to say that to celebrate technology without actually looking at some of the serious concerns that all of us do think about and work on. But overall, when you talk about the landscape of examination and evaluation, there is a greater variety of assessment patterns that are possible. And this, every regulatory body has also presented. NEP talks about this, where assessment, there needs to be an assessment management plan, a very systematic assessment management plan, where we need to have assessments strategized for every course and every program, and this would be different. So you really do not have a one size fits all kind of an assessment in this present scenario, and probably that adds to a lot of work in terms of the different categorization that we have. Nevertheless, it is an interesting area, because each course may have multiple kinds of assessments which would be different from the programs across departments and schools. So it is important to identify the correct type of assessment, have a blend of the correct type of assessment, and very, very importantly, remove the assessments from the fluid and flexible space to kind of have certain parameters, and the implementation can happen effectively only through assessment rubrics. So assessments without the assessment rubrics actually cannot function effectively, and so we cannot divorce rubrics from the assessment. Only when assessments are integrated with rubrics, then you have an effective assessment system. So all these, in fact, all these are very novel areas that we as controllers of examinations are looking through. But then this does involve a lot of work and a lot of brainstorming, but nevertheless, it kind of adds a greater purpose to the entire exercise of assessment, evaluation, and teaching, because these cannot be isolated from each other. This slide gives you the different various kinds of formative assessments, and this is from the UGC. So we have a lot of assessment kinds that the teaching fraternity can actually, as teachers, we would love to experiment these, but like I said, the note of caution is that they have to be integrated with effective rubrics. Otherwise, it would move into a very flexible space without any parameters. Now, when you talk about examination, there is always this confidential ecosystem that we talk about, and the confidential ecosystem is ushered in, or it is because of the question papers. Today, with the NEP, induced changes with the flexible credit system, with choices across streams for credits, we also are looking at a scenario where we have we may not work with fixed question paper patterns at all. Like we have multiple assessment and diverse assessment patterns that are possible, so also with the the summative assessments, which need not be on a fixed question paper pattern. And question banks are something that have phenomenally come in because of one, the assistance of technology, and second, with the general scenario, the changes, the dynamism of the education sector itself, where we talk about question banks being collaborative efforts. The internals and the external components do bring in, and randomization of question papers is possible. faster and swifter than it used to be some years back. And of course, creation of question papers from the question banks, again, a very fascinating area, but then needs to be, under strict parameters. So today, the security of the entire ecosystem of examination is based on just-in-time delivery of question papers, which arrests the conventional, problems and challenges that we had in terms of leakage of question papers, in terms of getting these printed and stored and keeping it under safe custody. So today we have encryption that happens before the question paper gets released, and since we have customized and personalized learning, we also have customized question papers in today's scenario. The UGC also talks about on-demand examination for online and distance education, remote learning, wherein the entire atmosphere of stress that is created because of examination will not exist. That a learner has the choice and the freedom to choose when to write his examination, and when he feels or when she feels that he or she is ready to go through the examination, then you have the on-demand examination. And of course, with multiple assessments, there is also a kind of an easy movement away from the high-stake written examination. So when we talk about the changes in the education sector, all these are changes, paradigm shifts that we are talking about, and where in terms of numbers, in terms of the execution, we are grappling with it, and it's a learning process for all of us, since this reformatory area of education itself is new, and then for all of us post-pandemic, I think we are all experimenting and trying to create certain given parameters. Evaluation again has undergone a sea change, because we talk about a movement away from the pen and paper. We are talking about examinations on the digital platform. So evaluation also on-screen evaluation, or you have online proctored examination. And when you very casually kind of browse through your YouTubes, I was flabbergasted by the number of YouTube videos which have been put up by the learners across the universe, and it's very interesting to see that you have YouTube videos which are tutorial videos on how to cheat in online examination. So we, as a generation of controllers of examination, I think we always need to understand that when we are talking about integrating technology into our activities, we are dealing with an entirely different generation who are fast ahead of all of us in terms of the use of technology. So today when we talk about online proctored examination, we also, like we have invigilation and the anti-cheating vigilance inside the classroom, the same thing needs to be applicable in terms of the digital platforms, and be it biometric, retina scan to arrest, proxy impersonation. So what is very important in terms of the evaluation is that there is a reduction in terms of the manual errors that get committed when a person is sitting down with a pen and paper and evaluating, because there is minimal human intervention. And very importantly, the features such as auto computing and auto totaling adds to the reduction of the human intervened errors, which are very, very normal, that can happen in a conventional evaluation mode. We talk about accuracy and speed together being integrated with digital evaluation, which is a big takeaway for teachers who are running between classes and also the evaluation centers. So digital evaluation in terms of accuracy and speed is a big add-on and takeaway thanks to the technology enhanced education. And we have multiple evaluations that is possible irrespective of what kind of examination. It could be MCQs, it could be a design examination, it could be descriptive. Today technology is able to accommodate these. And very importantly, when I say this, I must also say this, that as institutions, when we are experimenting and when we are taking that leap into the sphere of technology, there is an element of customization that every institution will need to, because there is an ecosystem that we as people existing inside the institution understand, and the processes. So the overall processes of examination, evaluation, teaching, learning, yes, it is the same, but then from institution to institution, there are certain customizations that we can bring in to suit our own ecosystem. And that is something that I think it's imperative that technology give us. The last aspect of technology changes that the education sector has been seeing in the last 5 to 10 years is also in terms of academic record management. And this has, changed hugely with the National Academic Depository, NAD, and ABC, Academic Bank of Credit, coming in. Earlier, there were explorations of blockchain technology in order to digitize certificates and grade cards, and also keep them secure. But today, with NAD portal coming in, all this is integrated together, and I'm sure all of us are an authentic part of this. And the process of authentication, the process of verification of certificates are much simpler and swifter, thanks to the use of technology, which can happen online. And this also helps in terms of verification, re-evaluation processes, and credit transfers, which we are going to see, because the NEP talks about multiple entry and exit, the kind of learner-centric initiatives that have come in. So a student is able to take credits from not just the institution that he has enrolled in, but move across and take credits from everywhere. So the academic record management system must ensure that there is every student has his or her credit accumulated. And for all of us, yes, it is a work that it involves multiple work and multitasking from all of us. But then that is exactly the changes that are happening in the education sector, and I guess all of us are prepared for that. So it is almost it's so customized that every student, when you click on the button, each student will have his history of the credits and accumulated. You must have a master data that holds not only the overview of one entire batch of students in one academic year, because today we no longer can afford to talk about academic year and the batches, because batches themselves can be very fluid, thanks to the multiple entry exit option, and more importantly, the availability of opportunities for learners to accumulate credit. So each student will have different credits, can have different credits in the same semester. So we are dealing with individual student data rather than accumulative data of an entire batch of students opting for a certain stream. Now, all these changes that have taken place or that are taking place in the education sector involves a recalibration of the role of controller of examination. Like I said, we are no longer limited to conducting examinations, transferring the marks, and computing and announcing of results, but the roles of controller of examinations have increased multiple times and diversified, because we are also integrated into the academic sphere now with outcome mapping and the credit transfers that are happening. This also has resulted in the examination schedule being very volatile and dynamic. We are talking of examination schedules throughout the year rather than one fixed season of examination. And I'm sure as teachers, we all understand, the painful part of it in a lighter vein is that no longer can we afford to say back at home that, look, this month by this date, we all finish our examinations. That's the end of the examination season and all of us can take off on a vacation. It doesn't happen, because your own children at home may be going through credit transfers from one institution to the other. You as controller of examination may be catering to certain examination schedules that have to be customized. So the volatility of examination schedule is an important emergent a challenge that we face as controllers of examination. And very importantly, when we are talking of a fluid examination schedule, there is a lot of work that gets involved in also understanding the slots where examinations can be scheduled. It's not that fixed slot, okay, these 2 months are fixed with examination. This is because you have non-fixed credits where the credits earned by a student in each semester may not even be the same. So each student data has to be checked multiple times because we are catering to the student choices. Students have several choices today, right from choice of faculty members to flexible timings to learning pace, or MOOC courses that he or she can take up. We talk about multidisciplinary choices that are available for students today in terms of dual degrees or courses, taking courses across streams, where the rigid compartmentalization of streams no longer exists today. Today we only talk about knowledge sphere, and every learner is a seeker of knowledge, irrespective of the fact that this knowledge can come in from anywhere. So I have just given you examples of students taking in, say, engineering and coupling it with a few credits from sports, from music, from art. So this makes their learning very, very interesting. Nevertheless, it requires a lot of recalibration on our roles as COEs, wherein we get integrated into the landscape of academics. And all this, the prerequisite for all this to happen seamlessly and scalably is an agile, adaptable, and scalable automation, because even automation cannot be fixed. We are talking of an automation that needs to be fluid, that is agile, and can take in changes as and when required. Today we talk about a landscape where learning outcomes have to be assessed, have to be mapped, have to be the attainment mapping has to happen, and there has to be an assessment plan for that. So all these kind of expand the horizons of the areas that COEs have worked. And coming lastly, all these changes have brought in with it its own challenges. Some of which I would like to talk about due to paucity of time here is, for example, for any techno intervention, we are talking about a third-party technology intervention, which is controlled by a third party. So obviously there are issues or concerns with data security, data privacy, and then it requires a huge investment initially investment in terms of the digital infrastructure. And this in digital infrastructure itself has to be very agile and update itself to the new requirements and new versions that come in. Apart from that, we have a huge, a country like ours, the problem of the digital divide in terms of the differences in socioeconomic conditions of not just people, but also institutions of seekers of knowledge, of learners. So all that adds to the challenges in terms of the automation. Then examination time slots and schedules, like I said, it is a big challenge. With the coming of online education and the enhanced use of technology, we are also talking about the questions of integrity and sanctity from the examination takers, because we are handling an entirely different generation who are much ahead of us in terms of the use of technology. As COEs, when we are talking about bringing in changes, we are also very realistically able to understand that there are resistance to changes from a certain generation of teachers who probably will take a little more longer to adapt to the changes that are coming in. So with the kind of huge changes and coupled with the intervention at the time of the pandemic, I think we as educators, as people involved in the landscape of education, we have found ourselves in a completely different way and adapting to the changes of technology that are happening all around us. So that in itself is a very big challenge that we are facing in terms of the number of changes that we are watching and experiencing in the sphere of education today. That's all from my end, and I can take questions if there are any. And before I take questions, I'd like to thank Adarsh and Linways for this platform.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really insightful for all of us, and thank you for all your support also, ma'am.